Castillo and Domingo Los Banos.
Whenever I'm thinking about film to do, I always try to think of something that people don't know, or something I can show them that they've never seen. And in the case of the story of Domingo Los Banos, I've known Domingo for many years now, and it was interesting to me that there was an aspect of his life that really no one knew because he didn't really talk about it that much. So I thought about why would people be interested in this story that I saw in Domingo's life. I'm interested in it. You know, it's the story of Domingo who goes to war at 18 years old with a bunch of boys from Hawaii, plantation boys. They're 18, 19 years old, and they go off to war in World War II. And later on, after he retires, 30-some years later, he's now their chaplain. He becomes their chaplain for their Veterans of Foreign War post. And as a chaplain, you know, he counsels them, listens to them, helps them with problems, as well as now that these guys are getting older, he's now burying them. He's now doing their eulogies, their funerals. He's helping their widows plan their funerals. So I had to ask, you know, would that be of interest to a wider audience than just myself? And I thought, yes, you know, this is a man, I think this is something we would all ask ourselves. Do we have friends? Are we connected to people in such a way that our lives would span our whole lifetime? And so I thought for Domingo it was an interesting question, way to raise that question for us. And so that's when I decided, yeah, I'll do this film because I think his life is interesting and it would be interesting to us because it relates to us in that way.
It was an all-Filipino outfit. They didn't even tell us that there were people who were specially trained and went before. Because we had only time to get to know them, and pretty soon we were in the routine of watching, getting on night duties and all that stuff, guarding the perimeters. See, I was in heavy weapons. And they were older. They were not teenagers, they were old men. And of course they were wide-eyed that we were so young, see.
There was a real urgency to doing this for me because as I have known Domingo over the years, you know, he would say to me, oh, we lost another guy. So I became very aware that he was aware that these 50 guys that he went to war with, among 300 Hawaii boys that went to war, he went to war with 50 of them. And out of the 50, he was beginning to lose them almost monthly. And then I found out, you know, there were only 12 left. And I thought, wow, this is really getting down there, so I'd better get going on this film. One of the things that made this film project really fun to work with is that Domingo had a little Brownie camera with him when he went off to war. And so he had a lot of photographs. He had documented his time with these guys when they were teenagers, you know, at war together in the Philippines. And so it was actually easy to tell the story because of his own documentation.
The Hawaii boys athletically just stood out because we were all workers, plantation workers, you know. And swimming and fishing and all of that. These other guys were tight, and although they were big, they were clumsy. And we were small, but dynamite come in small packages. We were agile, and very quickly the cadre, the sergeants noticed that of the Hawaii boys. And the Hawaii boys had a strong camaraderie, you see. They recognized that too. And so we very quickly we established status that we were not to be monked around with.
So by him having that little Brownie camera, it really helped me as a filmmaker to not have to search very far and wide to tell the story, but it also allowed me to tell a very personal story, a story in which he could tell his stories and I could actually show you what he was talking about.
One thing I know, there were a bunch of jokesters like Laping and George Consas. They could speak in dialect. They were Visayans. And they would prattle off and laugh, and they were funny, funny guys. Henry Caminos. Henry was a braggadocio guy, loud, you know. You like beef? You know, like toffee. Don Mendiola was quick to get mad. Don't play with him. Don't like to take orders, this boy, you see. And Mundo, Short Mundo, he was a prize fighter. Of course, the Hawaii boys, we began to feel the pride already, see? We were taking over the company, more or less. And by the time we were finished, yeah, the Hawaii boys were well established. Nobody fooled with us.
My hopes for this film has to do with something that Domingo talked about in the film, and which is a concept in the Filipino community of respecting your elders. It's a value, obviously, in many cultures, but in our culture, we talk about the manongs, the elders in our community, the older folks, and how it's to respect them and honor them. And I realized that for Domingo, that's partly what he was doing. He was providing a way for the young people to respect their elders by doing this photo book, and I thought, well, in a way, that's kind of what I'm doing. He is my manong, he is my elder, and so by doing this documentary, it was a way of honoring my manong Domingo, and letting the young people know that they too should look to their parents and their grandparents and see what stories they have to tell, what stories they have to remember and pass on to their children. And that's how the community goes on, that's how tradition goes on, is we pass on our stories. So I'm just passing on a story to the young ones in hopes that he won't be forgotten, the boys won't be forgotten, and they will remember their elders.